Few topics ignite as much curiosity as what happens after death. For those who have lived for decades, seen friends depart, and begun to feel their bodies slow down, this question becomes closer, almost intimate. Edgar Cayce, known as the sleeping prophet who unlocked mysteries of the soul, left behind impressive records of what he claimed to see on the other side. In a rare recording, forgotten for years, he speaks with serenity about what human consciousness encounters when it detaches from the body. This content, kept away from the public for so long, has recently been transcribed by scholars. It's direct, straightforward, and surprisingly clear. According to him, death isn't the end but a conscious transition. Moreover, it's experienced with lucidity. For those who fear the moment of departure, these revelations offer not just answers, but also a peace that's hard to explain. A peace that only those nearing that crossing can truly understand. Cayce's words weren't meant to shock, but to guide. He believed that the fear of death stemmed from ignorance about it, and that's why he insisted that knowing what awaits us could completely change how we live our final years. In this recovered excerpt from the interview, he describes in detail what happens in the first moments after passing. According to him, the spirit detaches from the body gently, like waking from a deep sleep. There's no pain, no confusion, just the clear perception of being alive but on another plane. Many seniors who have heard this account say they felt immediate relief. If this video brings you any comfort or reflection, please consider showing your support with a like or subscribing to keep up with content like this. Sometimes, a simple piece of information can calm years of silent doubt. In Cayce's view, each soul goes through a sort of life review, but without judgment in the traditional sense. He describes it as if consciousness were to travel in seconds through all the important moments, not to be punished, but to understand. The pain we caused and the love we offered return as pure sensations without excuses or masks. This process wouldn't be imposed by a higher being, but guided by the soul itself, which desires to understand its path. This idea contrasts with the fear of eternal punishment that so many religions have imposed over the centuries. For Cayce, there's no fixed heaven or hell. There are states of consciousness created by our actions, feelings, and intentions. And that changes everything. It changes how we look at our mistakes and especially how we choose our next steps while we're still here. When recounting these experiences, Cayce didn't make promises of an absolute paradise, nor did he threaten with punishment. He simply shared what he said he saw during his trances. One of the most touching descriptions is that of reunion. He stated that, after the detachment from the body, many souls are greeted by loved ones who have already passed. The encounter is silent, but deeply emotional. Recognition happens through feeling, not physical appearance. Parents, siblings, friends, even former loves appear to welcome, as if they've been waiting all along. This, according to Cayce, helps the soul not to get lost in this new space. For many seniors who have already lost nearly everyone around them, this image is especially powerful. The idea that no one departs alone, that there's a hug waiting on the other side, completely transforms the fear of the end into a new expectation. Another strong point of the interview is the explanation of time on the spiritual plane. Cayce reported that on the other side, time doesn't follow the same logic as here. A second can feel like an eternity, and at the same time, years can pass in the blink of an eye. That's because the soul moves by intention, not by the clock. This absence of time as we know it helps us understand why some spiritual presences seem so immediate, even decades after someone has passed. He said that the spirit continues to learn, grow, and even help those who remain. Often, when we think of someone dear who has passed and feel a sudden warmth in our chest, it may not just be longing, it may be their presence itself, subtle and discreet, trying to comfort. For those at the end of their journey, knowing this can bring a kind of hope that's hard to describe but easy to feel. Cayce also addressed the importance of inner preparation, not in the traditional religious sense, but in cultivating peace, gratitude, and awareness. For him, the soul carries with it the vibration of what it has lived, not what it has accumulated, not titles or possessions, but what it has felt and made others feel. He insisted that the moment of passing shouldn't be an accident of nature, but a dignified, conscious light closure. Therefore, he recommended that everyone, in their later years, review their life with honesty and serenity. To ask for forgiveness, to forgive, to give thanks, to free themselves from what weighs them down. Not to please some celestial judge, but to lighten their own soul. Because, according to him, everything we don't resolve here, we take with us. And in the spiritual world, this weight doesn't disappear, it only becomes clearer. Those who understand this early on depart with more lightness, and those who depart that way begin their new journey better. A curious excerpt from this interview is when he talks about those who deny any possibility of life after death. According to Cayce, these souls, when faced with the new reality, may feel confused for some time. They don't suffer, but they take longer to realize that they're no longer trapped in the physical body. He said that in these cases, spiritual guides and close family members act with delicacy, helping the soul to find its bearings. This shows that it's not a matter of belief, but of internal reality. Believing or not believing doesn't change the process, but it can change how it's experienced. And that's why Cayce encouraged us to talk about this topic naturally, especially with the elderly. Because for him, understanding the transition is a way to live the present better. Less fear, less resistance, more clarity. In his view, the more mature the soul, the simpler the passage. And this maturity comes from accepting life as it is. Another aspect often mentioned by him was the continuity of bonds. He rejected the idea that death severs everything. According to his accounts, true love creates permanent bridges between the planes. This doesn't mean that the person who has passed remains trapped here, but that they can communicate when there's attunement. A sincere thought, a silent prayer, a strong memory, all of this can be a channel of contact. Cayce recounted cases in which spirits came to console those who remained, offer intuitions, or simply make themselves felt. For the elderly who carry guilt, regrets, or deep longing, this point is essential, because it shows that it's still possible to express love, apologize, or simply give thanks even after death. This brings deep peace, and it also changes how we see our remaining days. Instead of waiting for the end, we start living the moments with more truth, more presence, and more meaning. Cayce was also clear in saying that no one is abandoned. Even those who have lived harshly, made mistakes, or strayed from the good are welcomed. According to him, the soul isn't judged by human rules, but understood in its totality. Every pain, every choice, every regret is analyzed with compassion. He believed that making mistakes is part of spiritual learning. Therefore, he said that the soul is guided to review its journey and decide for itself what it needs to adjust in future experiences. This concept of reincarnation, for Cayce, wasn't punishment, but a second chance, or as many as are necessary. And for the elderly who feel that there's no time left to change, this message is a balm, because it shows that the soul isn't bound by the time of the body. It continues, learns, evolves, and even after the last breath, there's still a path of growth, clarity, and new beginnings. The way Cayce described these new beginnings was simple, but profound. He said that after the transition, the soul spends time in a plane of learning, where it reviews choices, understands the effects of its actions, and prepares for the next steps. There's no rush in this process, nor imposition. The soul walks at its own pace. Some remain longer in this state of reflection, while others advance more quickly. Cayce compared this to a spiritual school, where each follows their own cycle. For many seniors accustomed to a life marked by obligations, deadlines, and fears, this idea offers relief, knowing that there's time, that no one is forced, that everything continues with respect and purpose, is calming and also encouraging. It encourages us to use the remaining days to cultivate this awareness, to look inward, to start this learning while still here. After all, according to Cayce, the more conscious we are now, the smoother the crossing will be. Another point he emphasized was the importance of small actions. Cayce said that simple gestures, like an apology, an act of kindness, a sincere word, have great weight on the soul's journey. He stated that many believe that what counts are great works or religious rituals, but that in fact what matters most is the intention behind each action. The soul registers feelings, not appearances. This teaching has immense value for those who are already in the final years of life, because it shows that it's never too late to do something that really matters. It doesn't take much. Sometimes a phone call, a hug, a note can resolve an entire chapter of life. And Cayce said that these resolutions don't die with the body. They travel with the soul, relieving its weight and illuminating its consciousness. Every gesture of truth, even small, has the power to transform the afterlife. In many moments of the interview, Cayce made it clear that life after death isn't a matter of belief, but of experience. He said that, just as we don't need to believe in the wind to feel it, we also don't need to understand everything to go through the transition. What makes the difference is how we live now. And that's why, according to him, cultivating serenity, honesty, and love prepares us in a real way. He didn't offer magic formulas, nor did he guarantee a pain-free path. He simply told what he said he saw, a journey that continues with new possibilities. For the elderly who feel time slipping away faster, this vision can be an invitation to stop, breathe, reflect, to let go of fear and embrace the idea that the soul continues, and that every choice made with truth builds a bridge to what comes after, not as an end, but as the next chapter. Throughout the interview, Cayce mentioned that how we face death reflects how we face life. People who have lived harshly often fear the time of departure, while those who have learned to forgive, to laugh at their own mistakes, and to value simplicity tend to face this moment with more serenity. He said that it's not about religion, but about awareness. The soul, when leaving the body, takes what it has built inside. And that's why it's so important to take care of the inner world. No one can go back in time to change the past, but everyone can change how they deal with it now. For those in their golden years, this message is powerful. It shows that there's still time to clean up what was left unresolved, to reconcile with what hurt, and to find meaning even in the most difficult experiences. Because everything that is understood with love transforms into light on the soul's path. Cayce also spoke frequently about the difference between attachment and love. He explained that attachment binds, but love frees, and that often by clinging excessively to those who have already passed or to objects from the past, we create barriers that hinder our own spiritual evolution. According to him, honoring someone isn't keeping them trapped in the pain of absence, but remembering with gratitude, moving forward, and continuing to live with meaning. For the elderly who have lost partners, children, or siblings, this distinction is essential, because it helps to transform grief into loving presence. Cayce suggested that each good memory be like a lit candle, not like an anchor, and that, by letting go of what no longer belongs to the present, we open space for a lighter, truer connection with those who have already passed. Not as someone who holds on, but as someone who loves in a mature way, confident that the bond remains even without the physical presence. Among the most touching points of the interview is what Cayce said about the mission of each soul. He believed that no one comes into the world by chance. Every life, however simple or suffering, has a purpose. Sometimes this purpose isn't grand in the eyes of the world, but it's transformative for those who live it. A grandfather who transmits wisdom, a woman who raises children with love, a man who works with honesty, all fulfill fundamental roles. Cayce said that after death, the soul understands this purpose more clearly, and that when it realizes that it has fulfilled what it needed to, it feels peace. For the elderly who often wonder if they have done enough, this revelation can bring comfort. Not everything needs to be grand. The essential thing is to live with truth. And even if the mission isn't yet clear, it continues until the last day. Every gesture still counts. Every thought still shapes the destiny of the soul. Cayce also pointed out that the fear of death often stems from the unknown. He compared the experience to crossing a door that has always been in front of us, but that we avoid opening. When we finally go through it, we realize that the space on the other side isn't dark or lonely, but silent and full of meaning. He said that the soul, when leaving the body, goes through a moment of deep recognition, a moment in which everything makes sense. The mistakes, the successes, the encounters and disagreements fit together, like pieces of a larger puzzle. For many seniors who live questioning decisions of the past, this image is powerful. Knowing that one day everything will be understood, that no pain was in vain, offers a kind of solace that few speeches can offer. And perhaps that's why Cayce insisted so much. The end of life isn't a punishment nor a loss. It's just the next step of something that has always been in progress. Another detail that stands out is how Cayce described the lightness of the soul when leaving the body. He said that the physical weight disappears so naturally that, often, the spirit only realizes that it has detached when it tries to interact with the environment and notices that it's no longer seen or heard. This account, repeated by many others who have had near-death experiences, brings to light an important point. Death isn't a sudden break, but a smooth transition, like falling asleep in one place and waking up in another. For the elderly audience, this type of explanation helps to reduce fear, as it replaces images of suffering with a vision of continuity. And more than that, it reinforces the idea that everything that has been lived continues to be part of existence. Cayce didn't promise miracles, but he offered a simple logic. If life is learning, death can't be the end. It needs to be the continuation of this process. In a final excerpt from the interview, Cayce was asked what he would do if he knew he had only one day left to live. His answer was direct. He would give thanks. He would give thanks for the opportunity to have lived, learned, and shared. And he added that gratitude is the most powerful feeling that the soul can carry. This statement, simple and unadorned, reveals much about what he believed to be the secret of a good departure. It's not escaping death, nor trying to postpone the inevitable. It's preparing with awareness and dignity. For the seniors who follow this content, perhaps this is the greatest teaching. Even if the remaining days are few, they have value. It's still possible to forgive, hug, smile, understand. And that changes everything, because living with gratitude doesn't only transform the present, it also transforms what will come after. The soul that gives thanks departs lighter, and the one that departs light finds clearer paths. For Cayce, it wasn't necessary to believe everything he said. He himself reinforced that his visions should be analyzed with an open heart, but also with discernment. The most important thing, according to him, was that each person seek their own understanding of what it means to exist beyond the body. He encouraged reading, meditation, solitary reflection. He said that the more intimate our relationship with inner silence, the easier it will be to understand the mysteries of the soul. This suggestion may seem simple, but it has enormous impact, especially for those who live in a phase of more recollection. For many seniors, silence is part of everyday life. And when used well, this silence can transform into a space for encountering what is most profound in us. Cayce didn't preach absolute truths, he offered keys. And the most powerful of these was this: whoever learns to be at peace with their own silence walks firmly towards what comes next. In his final years of life, Cayce never backed down from the revelations he made. Even criticized by some, he remained firm in his mission to transmit what he believed was useful for the evolution of souls. He said that the truth, when it arrives, doesn't need defense. It just is. And therefore he didn't make fiery speeches, nor did he try to convince anyone. He just told what he saw, with humility and respect. Today, so many decades later, his words still echo, especially among those who already feel the approach of farewell. This is not because they bring definitive answers, but because they open space for a new way of facing the end. For those who have lived a lot, seen the world change so many times, lost and won, tied and untied knots, perhaps all that is wanted at the end is this: a little truth, said with respect. And that's what Cayce offered. Not promises, but perspectives. Not dogmas, but possible paths. In closing this interview, forgotten for so long, Cayce stated that nothing is more liberating than understanding that the soul is eternal. This phrase, said with serenity, still resonates among those who seek comfort in the face of the inevitable. He didn't intend for people to start seeing death with joy, but with understanding, with less fear, more acceptance. For the elderly who carry the weight of a lifetime, perhaps this is the final lesson. It's not necessary to have all the answers. It's enough to be at peace with the questions and to trust that the journey doesn't end here. With each new day, the soul prepares, learns, and strengthens itself. And when the moment of departure arrives, it doesn't go alone, nor does it go lost. It continues supported by everything that was built with love. If you felt that this message touched you in some way, consider sharing it with someone who needs to hear this. And if you wish, subscribe to continue following content that respects your journey. There is something deeply human in wanting to understand where we go after everything ends here. And perhaps that's why Cayce's words continue to cross generations. He didn't offer a ready-made heaven, nor did he describe eternal punishments. He just spoke of a continuity where each soul continues to evolve, learn, and reunite with those it loved. This in itself is enough to change how we see life. For those who approach the end, this understanding can bring serenity. And for those who still have time, it can be an invitation to transformation, to live with more truth, more affection, more listening. Because, in the end, that's what we take. Cayce reminds us that the end of life doesn't need to be a moment of anguish, but a passage of meaning, and that no one needs to face this alone. There is always a presence, a memory, a love that awaits us on the other side, with the same delicacy with which we say goodbye from here. Those who have already felt the presence of a loved one even after their passing know that there is something beyond what the eyes see. Cayce only confirmed what many already sensed. The bond between souls doesn't dissolve with death. It transforms. It strengthens through longing. It illuminates through gratitude. The elderly, in their accumulated wisdom, understand this better than anyone. Because they have already lived departures, farewells, and silences that only time translates. Cayce's speech doesn't serve as empty consolation, but as a bridge between reason and hope. He didn't romanticize death, but neither did he fear it. He saw in it a natural part of the cycle of existence, and in sharing his visions, he left something precious, the possibility of looking at the end with less fear and more respect. Each of his words seemed to remember that dying isn't disappearing, it's just continuing, and continuing with dignity is what we all deserve. If this video brought reflection, peace, or even curiosity, consider leaving a comment telling your experience or vision on the topic. Your story can inspire others. And if you feel that this type of content resonates with your journey, subscribe to the channel to continue receiving videos that treat the soul with the care it deserves. Cayce's message is clear. Death is not an abyss, but a bridge. And each of us will cross this bridge in the right time, in our own way, taking what we lived with love. May you walk with lightness, and may you, when the time comes, be able to recognize in the silence the embrace of those who await you. Because according to Cayce, no one departs alone, no one gets lost. And true love, the one we build here, is what guides us to where one day we will all go.